Today we're interviewing the world record holder of Pokemon Uranium and I think a couple other games, if I'm not mistaken, like some ROM hacks and such.
Yeah, I've been playing a few other. There's a couple other fan games I played, as well as a few ROM hacks that I'm kind of just playing around with. And nobody else has played them, so I guess I have the sort of de facto world record.
Yeah,
So
yeah, just it's a sad default that you got no one else to compete with, I guess.
yeah, these it's more just I just enjoy the idea of routing games and not so much grinding them out and saving the seconds and the frames, figuring out how the most optimal way to play and figuring out from scratch is kind of I find that kind of interesting and fun.
Yeah, I imagine. So, the first question is, who are you and what do you do?
Yes, my name's Andre. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and currently I'm working as a materials engineer at an electronics manufacturing company. Yeah,
Wow,
nothing much more than that.
that's cool. That's real cool. Saw in your description that you were a coach, I think at some point, on your about
Coach
page on YouTube.
did some Dragon Boat coaching for a few years. Don't do that as much now, but um,
Right.
that was something I did quite a lot of when I was in university.
Oh, okay. Well, that's real cool. So, what kind of games do you speedrun exactly?
So I pretty much just play Pokemon games. I did play try a Zelda speedrun or an Oracle of Seasons speedrun once, just for fun. But mostly I've been playing Pokemon games. Pretty much they were such an integral part of my childhood. First game got on the Game Boy was Pokemon Red.
Oh, that's cool.
Played that and also played Pokemon Gold. And over the course of many, many hours of gameplay, I ended up catching all of the Pokemon, completing the Pokedex, except for Celebi, I think. I didn't get that one.
Yeah, that was a win
Um,
only.
but in
Yeah.
terms of speedrunning, I played a bit of Pokemon Red. I did some glitchless. There's a new category that came out called Classic, which doesn't incorporate RNG manipulation. It doesn't incorporate the Pokédoll glitch. It's not really a glitch, but Pokédoll skip. Um, and I also, again, as I mentioned earlier, I do mostly routing fan games and ROM hacks.
Right.
Lately, I've been playing a lot of Gen 3 ROM hacks, actually.
Yeah, I saw with some of your latest uploads. Pretty good. What made you want to speedrun Uranium in particular?
Yeah, I saw. Well, I think I don't know. I was just on the internet, and usually when I see a story about Pokemon, that sort of intrigues me a little. It was right around the time it was released, and then it was taken down by the initial creators of the game due to that to cease and desist by Nintendo.
Yeah.
But it seemed like a really cool game. There's a lot of hype surrounding it. It looked like a lot of fun. And tried playing it, played through a little bit of it, and I thought, hey, why not try doing a speed run of this? And I actually did go on YouTube and I saw a run of this game. I don't know if you had a chance to find this. This is a pretty old speed run that was
Probably
done,
not.
and it looked like it could in a slightly faster way. So I went about doing that. So that run ended up taking a starter, I think, and taking that starter all the way through the game. And I found a slightly faster way to do that with a traded Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah. I was curious about that because like when I went your video was actually the first result when I looked for uranium speedruns, oddly enough, as a world record holder.
Mhm.
And I noticed that I was like a little bewildered that you decided to go for the traded Pokemon, and it is indeed faster. The only downside is that outside of it, getting the max 100 already, Moxie slows down your frames a little.
It does, but I think the Moxie is such a
Great
because
ability.
it gives you an up stage of your attack with each Pokemon you take out. So
Yeah.
that saves buying a lot of items. Obviously, money is limited in Pokemon games,
Yeah.
so you want to make the most use of your money as possible. So not having to buy extra attacks was pretty useful to have.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's a given.
it's funny because I ran the game for a while, and then a very well-known speedrunner called Keyzeron, you may have heard of him.
Yeah.
He decided to pick up the game. He saw my run and thought it was a little bit slow. He thought it would be very, very slow with that traded Pokemon due to the Moxie. I think he tried playing a little bit with one of the starters, and he discovered that it was indeed faster to do the trade.
Yeah, must be a bit of a pain to find Mankey though, because like it has, from what I saw with version 1.0 at least, 2% encounter rate to find a Mankey.
A Mankey?
Yeah, you
I don't think you need a Mankey.
Oh, okay.
No, you catch a Fortog, which is
Oh yeah, that's right.
it's a water poison type.
Yeah.
So they're not very hard to catch.
Yeah, they're common.
They're if you fish in the first town, they're 100% to find in the water. You have to do a bit of backtracking, obviously, to get the rod and all that. But and obviously, fishing can be kind of RNG because you don't always get something when you use it. But
the RNG in the game is weird. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a vanilla or even a ROM hack for sure.
Yeah. Especially, I think it's worse with essentials because, yeah, I discovered a weird. Well, I didn't really discover it. I encountered this weird glitch in Solar Light Lunar Dark, where touching a bookcase will change the character's battle sprite and trainer sprite, but not the overworld sprite. It's weird.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's another.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
With the fifth question, I'd like to ask, for a casual player, what would be some of the more challenging aspects of the game?
Yeah, I didn't play it casually too much, but based on just playing through it and doing it as a speed run, there's a few things that I kind of figured out, or were not figured out, but I kind of think would make it a little more difficult for a casual player. The first thing is that the starter, they only have 2 stages. The first stage evolves at level, I think, around 30 or so. So that's kind of late. And obviously you got to catch a fairly well-balanced team, and I don't know whether there's a lot of good supplementary Pokemon early, so that might be a bit challenging. You might have to do a bit of grinding to get through some of the first few badges. The second thing is that in the Pokemon League, you can't use items in battle. This doesn't really affect the speedrun all that much because you have Moxie, but if you want to use X items, you can't really do that. So that makes that a little bit challenging. But the good thing is at least you can heal between fights, and that's not too bad. And you kind of get a bit of a preview as to who you're fighting later on. The third thing is you get Fly extremely late. So you actually get Fly after the last badge and after the last sort of section with the at the nuclear base.
Yeah.
For the speed run, again, that doesn't affect things too much because it's very linear route. You don't need to do too much backtrack. There's a train system that can be uses, but for the speedrun's point of view, it's not too bad. But if you're playing it casually and you want to go back and check out another area that you can access now that you have a different specific HM or something like that, that would be kind of difficult to do because you have to use the train, and it's a little bit annoying to do that. But
definitely, because there's a small fee to it.
Yeah. Not too bad though.
So there's a funny reason why Fly is at the end of the game. From what I've been told by the person I interviewed, she said that I think it was a lady. I've been essentially told that it was programmed at that point when it was in the beta. Like the reason why Fly was so late is because they kind of forgot it existed and then decided to add it in.
Oh,
that floored me when I learned that. Oh, so I guess that transcends into the next question. How challenging would you describe the game in both a casual and veteran sense? Because like money is scarce and the TMs are overpriced.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I know there's a lot of criticism that goes into the vanilla games, like the traditional Gen 1 all the way through Gen 7, that those games are kind of easy. So this game kind of has a little bit more of a difficulty curve to it, which is a little bit more, I guess, a better experience for those who are a little more experienced. But it can be a little bit difficult at times, obviously due to the money and the backtracking point of view. That being said, it is definitely playable. You can get through the game. You don't really get stuck at any specific point, at least from my point of view. You don't really get walled by anything. There are some fan games and ROM hacks which are extremely difficult to play. You have to do a lot of grinding and spend a lot of time getting through checkpoints or hurdles through the game. So I'd say it's a little more difficult from both the speedrun and I guess from the speedrun point of view. I'll get to the sort of, I think, towards the end of the questions that you want to ask. I have a pretty good, that's kind of one of my criticisms of the game as to why it's more difficult as a speedrun. But from a casual point of view, yeah, it's a little more challenging, I would say.
Yeah. So, do you have any favorite fake mountains from Uranium you like to use or see?
Yeah, so the one that I actually use as the main for most of the run is the Vashon,
Yeah.
really good Pokemon. It has really good attack, has Moxie ability. It picks up a lot of good moves by TM and also by learning. There's a lot of criticism, I guess, in a lot of these fake mons and a lot of other games that they're not very good. And even the new Pokemon that come out and the new Pokemon games that are actually official, some of those are kind of get criticized for design. The design of this Fighting Dark Sheep line is pretty good. I kind of like the design. If I had to pick a second, I had to go through the list and see. I think the Orchinx line is good as well. So that's the grass
cool.
steel starter.
Yeah.
Yeah, both it and its evolution, the Metal Lynx, is also very cool as well.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of using it. I did use it actually early in one of my earlier runs, but it's not really good for a speed run, I guess. But
yeah,
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think in a bit later after, I think 1.1, they made the fix of giving it Leech Seed, which it didn't initially have. And
yeah, I think the starters, the Byron they was started with
Water Gun and Ember. Water Gun and Ember.
Initially, the Orchinx didn't have anything; it just had Scratch and Growl, I think. But later, I think at 1.2, I think they added Leech Seed, which obviously Leech Seed it's good in certain cases in terms of getting some healing, you save healing. But it can be very slow, and obviously it's not very accurate, so it's not the best kind of move. And from a speedrun point of view, it's very slow.
Yeah, it'd be actually worse because the opponent you fight has static of all abilities, and that will just slow everything down.
Yes,
if you get paralyzed, which is certain death. So
that makes that challenging. So.
Yeah. So do you miss running Pokemon Uranium?
Yeah, I guess a little bit, but it's a very challenging game to actually get a very consistent speed run in. And again, this kind of comes into sort of bit of a preview to what I want to talk about later in another one of your questions. But it's a little bit it's not very optimal. It's kind of challenging and frustrating to if things happen, things go wrong. That being said, the time I got is pretty decent. I don't remember. I think it's around 3:15. Obviously, the movement is a little not very good in the run. That could be improved. But generally, it was played relatively well. Any time that I did lose, actually, were on some really tough fights. I had to reset the fight, so it would be a lot of work trying to grind that thing out a little bit more. But I don't have as much time to play games consistently, so.
It's a given with life, I think. And I think one of the worst things, I think, especially in running, is going against the fire gym leader. Forgot his name, but he has a mega that essentially wrecks everything. Like even for casual players, they're gonna get wrecked. Forgot its name.
The fire gym?
Yeah, I think so. It has the ability that essentially gives power to priority moves, which is broken.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what that is, but
yeah, it's essentially I think it was like a kind of a dog-like thing, but with rockets for legs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fire dude.
Yeah, I think I have an idea of what you're talking about. That's not really the point. That's not the most challenging. The hardest fight is a rival fight on the boat.
Oh.
If you start with if you watch my run, I died twice to it before I end up beating the guy. You start with depending on your starter, he has a different team, and so if you start with the water starter, which is what I did, which is the fastest way to get to the sheep. He leads a Nymphflora, which is a fairy bug type, and that thing spams fairy type moves, and because you're dark fighting, you're 4 times weak to it.
Yeah.
So X defends, and if he crits you, you have to restart the fight. Yeah. So that's the biggest hurdle on the run.
Yeah. And weirdly enough, the game actually gives you 2 sets of the same TMs because they assumed players wouldn't get it. Like, I think Toxic is one of them, hilariously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the weirdest thing I found was you get the Awakening item at the Elite Four and not, say, the first gym. It's crazy.
Huh.
Yeah.
You can't buy, like, full heals or anything like that? I can't remember exactly.
You can buy, I'm pretty sure you can buy full heals after a certain point, because I think that's something they had a bit of hindsight with, but not the Awakening item for whatever reason. It's weird. So
yeah, I remember the first gym can be kind of annoying with Yawn. So
yeah, unless you brought yourself a Mankey with Vital Spirit, in which case it's a breeze. But even then, they're rare.
Oh, yeah.
They're 2%. So that leads me up to my next question. What is your favorite thing from the game exactly?
I think the biggest thing I enjoyed about the game is that I like the story. It's a fairly unique story.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a little bit different than a traditional story that you'd expect, and I won't for anyone who hasn't played the game all the way through, but when they revealed who the main villain is, I was really shocked, and actually that shock kind of made it kind of enjoyable. I don't know. That's just.
Oh, okay.
I know you sound a little surprised about my answer.
Yeah, because I predicted it the moment the intro played. I'm not going to spoil what exactly, but actually I'm going to spoil it when I get to the when I go around to criticizing it actually. But I'm not going to ruin it for anyone listening to this review. Not review. Interview. Man, I'm so used to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to ruin that.
I can see that being predicted for sure.
Yeah.
I guess at the time I didn't.
Yeah. I got a lot of things to say about the story and like some of the other things that I think could have been avoided or at least fixed. Speaking of fixed, if there was one thing from Pokemon Uranium you could change, what would it be?
Yeah, so there's actually kind of 2 things that I have. This is kind of comes into my sort of main issues with the game. The first thing is kind of this is an issue that came up when Keyzeron was trying to run this game, is that this game doesn't have static stats on trainers. So what that means is usually when you play through a game, say Pokemon Red, Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Emerald, no matter what, every time you play the opponents you face, their Pokemon have the same ability, the same stats, the same nature, which means when you're actually routing these games and trying to optimize them, get them as fast as possible, you have to really go in deep and figure out exactly what their stats are, and that'll give you a sort of idea of how fast you need to be compared to them, how much attack you need, how many times you need to set up to be able to shot. And you obviously don't want to take too much damage from them, so you have to keep in mind of what their attack is as well. But for whatever on Essentials games, and this happens for almost all of the ones that I've looked at, there's no static stats or no static abilities or no static nature. And so very often if you were to fight something, say, for example, that a lot of attack, that has a really good attack, say it's using, we'll take for example that Nymphflora, which has really Kiss is the move that does a lot of damage. That's a special attack. If that Nymphflora is like a minus special attack nature with a low IV, it's not as plus special attack nature with a high IV, like a 31 IV. and you don't even know what you're going to get until it wrecks you. So that's kind of the biggest issue that I have from a speedrun perspective. From a casual perspective, it's not as big of a deal.
Oh, okay.
So what does that really mean? And this is kind of what's prevented it's likely preventing other people from wanting to run this game is what you really have to do is you have to set up extra times. So a lot of the times I would set up maybe multiple X speeds or X special defends or whatnot. If it was a consistent set of pokes, it would be very, very simple. You just do the same setup every time. Obviously, it might depend based on your stats, but at least with your stats, you know what those are. But you don't know what their stats are.
Right, because like there's no consistency. It's just pure RNG to whether or not you're gonna end up getting real luck or real schmuck, as it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Canadian.
That's the one thing I have that's an issue, and the second, as you know, the game runs on a pretty old engine, RGSS player, I believe.
Yeah. They're actually in the works of transferring it to a newer version to make it run better. But that's taking forever from what I've been told when I was chatting with some of the people in the Discord server, as it was.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it's nerfed a lot of Pokemon. Sorry.
Yeah, so this player, sorry for cutting over you there, but the engine, I guess, is pretty old. And what I've noticed, depending on which PC you have and what specs you have on your PC, it can get really laggy. I've tried playing it on several different PCs, and some run better than others. And so, I guess from a casual perspective, it doesn't really matter. Quite really frustrated with the lag, and you want it to go a bit quicker. But from a speedrun, this is obviously kind of preventing this game from being super competitive because this really makes the people who have better PCs at an advantage. So that's kind of the biggest issue. And this happens again with all, very much like my others, this is kind of inherent to all PC fan games with the RPG Maker. On the flip side, if you were to run a game, say a ROM hack with an emulator, that emulator software uses far less resources, and so therefore, pretty on a computer. So that's kind of another issue that I have. It would be cool if they kind of were able to port that over to a ROM hack or something like that.
That reminds me, actually, there is, technically speaking, a ROM hack of Pokemon Uranium. It was used for development purposes, of course. I've seen.
I saw something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, on the official Pokemon Uranium channel that's still up. They used I think they used Ruby, I'm pretty sure. They used the ROM of Ruby to develop the game, and then they started with I think Essentials a bit later that year. Because after doing a good bit of research, I found that they started developing it in Essentials roughly a few months into the new year, from 2007.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember I was going on to, like, there's several sort of like repositories, I guess, of ROM hacks on the internet. Something under Uranium, but it looks very product, and so that would make sense if it was like an early stage version that they were trying out.
Yeah, and this is a common thing with games that are developed in Essentials. They start with a ROM hack first just to get an idea of where to place things, and then they port it over to their Essentials toolkit, I suppose. The only I think issue that it's consistent, I think, that I've seen with other fan games as well, is that they keep using Heart Gold Soul Silver's assets, which take up a whole lot, which XP isn't meant to take on. If it were a bit, I don't know, more simplified, it would be a lot easier to handle with like simple colors and details. Then things would be a lot more consistent.
Yeah, because I think like the Uranium play, there's elements from I think up to even Gen. I don't know if it goes up to Gen 5, but there's certainly music from Gen 4 in there. I think
Oh,
Heart Gold, Soul
oh,
Silver. Um, the
oh.
game looks very similar, sort of a Gen 3 or Gen 4 type game. So I
Gen
think
3.
yeah, it could
Um,
easily be made into an actual ROM hack for
yeah,
sure.
that's a
I don't know.
given.
I know nothing about this, but
I've
yeah.
been doing research on music for the past few months, and it has been utter hell trying to track down all of the tracks. And I still haven't, by the way. I'm only about half, if not almost, let's see. I've found so far almost 40 tracks out of the 69 that are present in the game. And a good portion of it
Oh, wow.
is remixed, and some of the
Yeah.
a lot of the artists that were, like that were taken from didn't weren't even aware of it. And it's pretty crazy what
Huh.
the one guy on YouTube did with the soundtrack. He just credited Electric Mudkip and Dashi nowadays. And that damaged a lot of things. Aside from his reputation, it prevented people from finding the actual composers. And
Oh, wow.
it's been hell trying to find everyone as well as like all the correct tracks because one user doesn't exist anymore. Selfish, actually. And
Hmm.
there is no way I can contact him, nor the guy who uploaded all of the Uranium soundtracks. Oh, and yeah, there are games, actually not games. There are tracks that are from the official games. Leaf Green, like all of the, regular sound effects and such
Yep.
from as far back as Gen 2 actually, with the cave theme
Oh, okay.
unaltered. And like a couple other things just left unchanged. Like the Hall of Fame theme is directly taken from Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know there's a few tracks from having played a few Gen 3 ROM hacks recently. There's some tracks from Emerald, I think. Um,
Yeah, I'm less
I think
concerned.
in the nuclear section, I think there were some. Yeah, I think it's the
Yeah,
nuclear section. I'm not sure, but
yeah, definitely. Because like I've been looking through this, and I can actually, if you read the document, you'd see what I got so far. It's been hell.
hmm.
Or should I
Yeah, I'd be
send it to
curious
you again?
about that for sure.
Hmm. Oh man, it is really hell. Hell as in hot. It's warm in this house, but also tracking down all of those tracks because I still haven't found them all. Some of them were actually remixed by other artists who weren't even credited. It's weird. It's quite hard because I have to track down all of them and then surmise, I guess, like not an opinion, but like how they were used, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's really about it as far as this interview goes. Feel free to add any comments, and I will link your channel without question.
Yeah, sure. No, that's pretty much all I have. Um, yeah, it was definitely an interesting game for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, this thing's been going on for half an hour. Well, separate upload, I suppose. But thank you very much for your time, Andre. It
Yeah, no problem.
might have taken a while to get in contact with you because YouTube's a dummy. But thank you very much for taking your time out of the day to allow me to interview you like this.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know if you were going to put any of this in the video that you're planning, but feel free. You can do that
Oh,
probably.
that's sweet. I might
I don't.
use like a few samples of here and there, just like
Yeah.
yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
like where the context matters. But yeah, that's it. That's definitely going to be used and uploaded separately for anyone who's curious to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely do it. Definitely upload